Ghana versus Togo, not on the football pitch, but over a maritime boundary dispute. Well, the government says it is referring the matter to international arbitration under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea after nearly a decade of stalled bilateral talks. In a statement, officials say the decision is aimed at preventing further tensions and avoiding potential incidences between state institutions of the two countries operating in the disputed waters. My colleague James Aveji has more.
This is on the sea, the border between Ghana and Togo. But just to refresh our memories, there was a similar case between Ghana and Ivory Coast, which had been settled just a few years ago under the previous government, where Ghana had which was eventually, that matter between the two countries was eventually taken to the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea, ITLOS. The tribunal ruled largely in Ghana's favor in that particular case, and the dispute area covered parts of Ghana's Jubilee oil field, the Thin area oil field, and other offshore exploration blocks. And so that was the decision. The only difference is that this particular issue we're talking about between Ghana and Togo has not been taken to ITLOS, but rather the United Nations Court of the Law of the Sea instead of the International Arbitration Court. And so the current situation, however, we've been trying to track down if there's any history around it. There's no available public data yet on any evidence confirming the presence of oil in the disputed region that is being litigated now. It is rumored that there is oil in that region which might be fueling the dispute between the two countries. That said, the maritime boundaries are not only about oil. There are also other significant economic activities in such areas, particularly fishing by persons of these two countries, which is vital for the livelihood and food security of both Ghana and Togo. And so that's the available data we have now around it, and I'm sure subsequent information would give us more details on why the two countries are in loggerheads and why the two are dragging this between each other.
That's my colleague James Aveji there. Well, this is a report by Joy News detailing aspects of the meeting between the two countries in a bid to resolve the matter.
The 11th meeting of the joint Ghana-Togo Maritime Boundary Delimitation Technical Committee was held at the Labadi Beach Hotel in Accra. National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Emmanuel Kotia, described the meeting successful and says the two countries are getting closer to signing the Maritime Boundary Delimitation Agreement.
But we also emphasize that once the agreement is signed, it will dovetail to most of the issues around the disputed area resolved automatically. So our emphasis and our priority is for us to resolve this issue as soon as possible. And since the Joint Committee has been meeting since 2018, we think that the progress that we have made is very tremendous, and we are almost reaching the tipping point apart from some very few issues that we need to resolve. These discussions have been made in the spirit and tenets of negotiation. Ghana is committed to a negotiated settlement of the dispute, the maritime dispute between Ghana and Togo. And we hope that we should be able to meet this within the first quarter of next year, if not earlier. We also want to commit that once an agreement is signed, this committee would continue to meet regularly, at least twice a year. So far as the maritime boundary issues are concerned, Ghana is cooperating with Togo very well, and we have progressed very fast so far as reaffirmation is concerned. And I'm happy to tell you that we have reaffirmed over 200 kilometers between Ghana and Togo this year. And that is progress.
Togo's presidential advisor and deputy chief negotiator Stanislas Baba says he's hopeful a maritime boundary delimitation agreement which will bring an end to the dispute over the ocean boundary of the two countries will be signed next year.
It's a matter of preserving the peace both in Togo and Ghana. It is also a matter of respecting the interest of Togo and Ghana. But everything is going well. Our discussions are, I would say, very cool, and we are talking in the spirit of brotherhood. And I think maybe next year the time will come to sign.
Joining me on Zoom right now is the former Commissioner General of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Emmanuel Wikem Kotia. Grateful for your time this afternoon, Major General. Bring us up to speed with the background to this issue. How did we really get here?
Good afternoon to your viewers. Looking at the start of these talks, Togo decided not to recognize the international maritime boundary that has been in existence or recognized by the two countries for over 60 years. Now, once that was done, the head of states of the two countries decided to meet sometime in 2017 and decided that in order to resolve this issue, there should be a joint technical committee made of Togo and Ghana to meet and resolve all the technical details of the issues that have been raised by Togo. Now, these meetings went on up to the 11th to the 12th meeting. And despite the fact that progress were made in certain areas, we couldn't resolve the issue that would lead us to sign an agreement. Therefore, the Ghana team, the Ghana Boundary Commission decided that since there was a stalemate in the talks, it should be escalated to the level of the presidents, those who initiated the move of the joint committee. So that was what was done, and the two presidents met sometime in July 2022 in the presence of cabinet ministers responsible for those fields and 10 members of the Ghana Boundary Commission. Some kind of agreement was reached between the two presidents. But then the implementation was not forthcoming, especially from the Togo side. So I believe that this stalemate led to the current development where the Ghana government has served notice for international arbitration.
Right. And what economic importance does the area hold that warrants this dispute?
A lot of economic importance. First of all, some areas have been marked for oil exploration. There are rumors, not yet confirmed, that there's some deposits of oil in that area, especially along the Keita Basin.
Right.
Additionally, a lot of fishing activities take place in that area. And then we also know that there are a lot of river transport activities that cuts across the two countries in that particular area. Now, what happened was, as a way of goodwill to the sharing of goodwill to the Togolese government, the Ghana government decided that they would discontinue with the exploration in the Keita Basin. Most part of the Keita Basin, that exploration could have gone on, that is not closer to the disputed area. So as a matter of goodwill, the Ghana government decided that let's suspend this so that we'll see a negotiated settlement of the dispute before we could go on with exploration at the Keita Basin. So that was the goodwill gesture that the Ghana government extended to Togo so far as the Keita Basin area was concerned.
Right. And it's referring the matter to international arbitration under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the right step, you'd say?
I think there is I think that at this stage it is the right step, because the ball was now in the court of the Togolese to come forth based on the agreement reached by the two head of states for action to be taken. And I can tell you that the next stage that was supposed to take place after the two head of states met was an agreement. There was a draft agreement that was prepared, and there was a draft map that was prepared so that the two presidents would have ascended to it at that stage. But then this never came on based on the statement that one cannot explain.
Right. And what is the likely impact on Ghana's relationship with our eastern neighbor, Togo?
Once there's an international arbitration,
right,
I don't think that there will be any problem. The same thing happened and the same fears were expressed when we went to International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea on the Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire maritime boundary. And now we have the best of relationship. What the two presidents wanted to avoid was that they knew that for Ghana and Togo, we are much closer culturally, ethnically, and in the various ways, tribal and intermarriages and what have you. So they wanted to avoid a situation where probably there will be a gap between Ghana and Togo. But once it goes to international arbitration, I think that both countries would abide by whatever decision is taken.
Major General, don't go yet. Let me bring in international relations expert, Dr. Ishmael Hlover. Dr. Hlover, welcome to the program. What do you make of the latest development in our dispute with our neighbors, Togo?
Thank you and good afternoon to your viewers. I think that is just a follow-up on a series of things that have happened along that border. And I think at this point, once the settlement negotiation process...
Dr. Hlover, if you can kindly speak up for me.
Okay, hello?
Yes, much better.
Is it better? Okay. So I'm saying that it's just the escalation of the dispute in that region. Once negotiated settlement is not yielding results, it becomes very important that the two countries, particularly Ghana, take it up to that international level and get a settlement before any further exploration and any other activities. That helps to avoid any future escalating in tensions, because often there are a lot of activities are ongoing in that area. There are fishermen, there are security agencies who are engaged. So you want to get it settled as quickly as possible so that any development of the area will not be contended by other parties. So I think that it's a natural progression where you have a negotiating and it's not going anywhere. You then move to arbitration and get some solutions from there.
Why do you think this dispute has taken almost a decade to be resolved?
From the former director of the Boundary Committee, you can clearly see that there seems to be an attempt on the part of the Togolese to drag their feet. For whatever reason, I can't explain that one, but you can clearly see that perhaps given the technicalities of those issues, the negotiations were not going in much more in favor of the Togolese as they would have envisaged. And so when it happens like that, one of the things you can do is to drag the negotiations as long as you can and frustrate the other party. So I think maybe that's the position the Togolese have adopted. And so in that case, Ghana has no choice than to move up to international arbitration.
And of course, this can take years, running into decades before this issue is resolved. Would you propose Ghana taking the diplomatic route, engaging with our eastern neighbors diplomatically?
Of course, the diplomatic route has already been taken. As you have seen, it has been a long period of negotiation. In as much as diplomacy works, you can't continue negotiation forever. It's a point at which you realize that it's a breaking point, and then you have to make a decision, and that decision has been made. That does not automatically translate to a break up of diplomatic negotiations. You can continue the two processes side by side, so that even preparing for the ruling, the two countries have to engage. They must come to certain understanding that whichever way the ruling will go, they must respect it and accept it. they must also continue diplomatic engagement because as the issue has gone to this level, you don't want comment, you don't want public statement that inflame passions, that inflame other side of to the dispute. You also want to ensure that there's still negotiation in other parts relating to Ghana-Togo relations, so that this one is seen as purely a technical issue, so that it doesn't spread to areas that we have common interests like trade, like others. So yes, there will always be continued diplomatic engagement, even as we are pursuing this through the international arbitration channel. You must still continue to engage with them diplomatically and then prepare the ground for a virtual ruling that may come.
Dr. Ishmael Holova is an international relations expert. Thank you very much. I still have Major General Emmanuel Kotia with me on the phone lines. Major General, I want to pick your final thoughts before we wrap up.
That Ghana should pursue the international arbitration routes. At the same time, we could open up an avenue for diplomatic engagement if the Togolese are willing and genuinely want to engage. Because the issue has always been the problem from the Togolese. And I think that once that channel is opened, we can continue with the arbitration. And if whatever ruling that is given in arbitration, then using diplomatic channels, we can use that to be able to resolve other issues that make other challenges that may be associated to the implementation of the arbitration results.
Major General retired Emmanuel Kotia, glad you could join me this afternoon. He's the former Commissioner General of the Ghana Boundary Commission and also a security analyst. Now, Chair of ECOWAS Ministers responsible for gender, Dr. Isata Mahoy, has expressed optimism that the region can meet its 2035 targets on the inclusion of women and vulnerable groups in politics, where she believes coordinated national strategies, data-driven monetary systems, and stronger intergenerational inclusion aligned with continental frameworks such as the African Union's Agenda 2063 will be critical to achieving the goal. Dr. Mahoy was speaking exclusively to my colleague Stephen Mensah on the sidelines of the regional consultation on women's political participation currently underway in Accra.
We'll bring you the updates as to the conversations about women in politics and the marginalized or the vulnerable groups in politics. Right about now, I have the Minister for Gender for Sierra Leone, Dr. Isata Mahoy. Thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome to Ghana.
Thank you.
How has Ghana treated you so far?
So good, so good. This is not my first time actually. I've been coming here most of the time because I used to work for an agency, OneUp. So I used to come here almost all the time.
I'd want to zoom in straight into the conversation about women in politics. The conversation so far has been that you are not really included in the whole conversations about politics in the sub-region.
So, I mean, data can speak for itself. We've seen that women make up over half of the population of the West African region. And for this, we were open or thinking that women should be at the forefront when it comes to being in politics or decision-making or leadership positions. But the present context is far from that. Although countries are doing very well, some countries are moving up, so others are catching up, others are still very slow when it comes to positioning their women in decision-making processes.
You are here in Ghana for the conversations about ECOWAS and women in... How has the conversation been so far?
Oh, well, the conversation went very well because I think we made the right time, the right choice to come here to Ghana. It's no secret that we chose Ghana because, of course, you know, your president is Adi Foshi, and is paving the way for women. So we came here to discuss and make recommendations to ECOWAS on how the women and young people's agenda should be shaped between now and 2035. Because we know that women are the future. We know that without women and young people in the discussion, political discussion, it will not breed very good results in Africa, in West Africa specifically. But we're happy, in fact, for Ghana to get the first vice president who is female now. It means countries are making heads, and I think that other countries will follow soon. Also, for us in Sierra Leone, because I'm representing my country as the Minister for Gender and Children's Affairs, we have made progress because we took affirmative actions. There's a quota for women, 30% quota, and which we have achieved that one. But we want to see how we promote parity and equality in Sierra Leone. And this is what we are also praying for other countries. We have the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, which has given the premise for women to be in decision-making processes. In Parliament, we used to have like 12.5% or 12.3%, and now we have 30%. In Cabinet, we have many women, 10 women out of 28 women, and then we have deputy ministers, 13. So you see, for me, I think we're making progress. We just need to push a little further, get the right laws, and implement those laws. It will help us.
It's interesting you talk about the quotas and the recommendations also. Here in Ghana, there's a research that shows that political parties are not favoring the women. Is it the same in your country also?
Oh yes, it used to be the same. In fact, till now we're still struggling. In fact, we're in the process of reviewing our national constitution. And in this constitution, we're working with civil society organizations, women-led organizations, to see how we push the women's agenda. Of course, it used to be like that in Sierra Leone, when you hardly find women on decision-making tables. But now you can see them. You see us. Me, I'm a representative of those women, and we get a lot more. So we want to make the women in politics very attractive for women all around West Africa. We want to see how we work together in a very good alliance, being committed in a very coordinated and collaborative way to see how we move the agenda forward. Me being the chair for all Gender and Women Affairs Minister for ECOWAS, we want to pledge our commitments and remain steadfast that we are going to push this agenda so that many other African states or West African states can also copy from examples of Ghana, Sierra Leone, and others who have moved forward.
Another conversation should be about financing for women in politics and also for the youth who will be entering politics. How is that going to go about?
For me, I think it is a very critical one because you can empower women with their rights all you want, but without the economic empowerment, the financial empowerment, it is difficult for them to be able to assert their rights, to advocate for those rights and maintain and get a position in the political sphere. The reason being that when you are economically or financially empowered, you are able to speak up without violence. So people now can link you up with authority, because when there is no financial aspect that you have or economic empowerment, then they say, who are you? What do you want to become? You don't have anything to show. So this is why empowering women financially is part of the game. In fact, inside our Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, one of the main clauses is financial inclusion. And this is what our government is looking at presently, working with financial institutions, getting support from World Bank and others, UN Women supporting here and there, so that we get financial inclusion.
And this afternoon, the CDD Ghana has revealed a scoreboard on John Mahama administration, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. The report took into account major incidents in security, corruption, governance, education, health, among others. We'll speak to the CDD shortly for some more analysis. But first, my colleague James Avaji has joined me in studio with highlights of the report. James, I understand the CDD grouped these reports into 6 thematic areas. Run us through.
Exactly. So that's what you have on the screen now. And the first is democracy, governance, human rights, and the rule of law put together into one thematic area. Then you have anti-corruption and accountability. Economy and jobs also featured heavily, but also environment and social development, together with foreign affairs and regional integration. And there were some interesting issues raised under this particular one, but the biggest, I consider the biggest issue in that particular report is the analysis of Ghana's performance in terms of defense, security, and peace building, especially when the conversation over the period in the last few days has been about the absence of a substantive defense minister, even though the finance minister, Dr. Kasiel Atuforsen, is performing that duty. So these are the key findings. And the first is the president's decision to cap his ministerial appointment at 60. The CDD believes that this was a good move by the John Dramani Mahama administration, as there's always been, reservations about the large number of government appointees, especially what we saw under the previous administration with over 120 ministers with their deputies. You would also recall that in the first budget of this government, they announced that they are taking off the decapping the District Assembly Common Fund allocation to the various district assemblies across the country. The previous government was doing less than what we see now, 80%, because a lot of contracts at the time were awarded here in Accra and were implemented at the district assembly level. And this government believes that the work must happen at the assembly level. And so they raised that allocation from the DACF here in Accra to the MMDAs to 80% of the entire allocations. So those are some of the goods, the positives under democracy, governance, and human rights the CDD has indicated in this particular report. Those that are challenges, first is the removal of the Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu, the big issue about which raised questions about the independence of the judiciary and the other arms of government. That process, another leg of that process is still at the ECOWAS court. They sat on it the other time. There is an agenda which is still dragging in court. The former CJ is trying to fight, especially against her removal, and if she will be entitled to taking her, entitlement as a Chief Justice, former Chief Justice of the Republic. Then is the report of police brutality and arrest for false news also persisting in this government. You remember the journalist who was picked up for publishing a story that was considered as fake news.
Right.
The police and government was condemned because of that. The attack on journalists as well still ongoing. The concern for CDD is about how this is transitioning or moving from ordinary citizens attacking journalists to now security personnel attacking journalists, and how this is denting the image of Ghana in terms of governance and human rights. And finally is the frequent use of the certificate of the certificate of agency in the passing of public or bills in Parliament. This has been a concern. In the last few days, the minority have raised issues about that. They held a press conference to talk about this. The CDD also took note of this. They believe that some of these things will result in the passage of bills, very sensitive bills, that needed time to scrutinize and bring the best out of these bills. But because of the excessive use of this certificate of agency, we may not be doing the best in terms of the passage of laws for the country. And we can now move to the next sector that they have been looking at in terms of this particular analysis, in terms as far as this particular analysis is concerned. Trying to get that for you. But if you look at sectors like education, the CDD have been talking, okay, so I have anti-corruption and accountability. They talk about fined officials 3-month salary for late asset declaration. You remember that issue that came up at the beginning of this government, where the presidency gave a timeline for his appointees to file their assets or to declare their assets, which they were not able to do in time. The president fined them to forfeit part of their salary They recovered 824 million Ghana cedi from Unibank, and the ghost names pledged at 81,000, which recovery has been done. The president's decision to protect the OSP from parliamentary repeal, asset declarations remain accessible to public verification, which is also one high. And then the government also set a high threshold for gift risking corruption loopholes. That gift threshold is currently at 20,000 Ghana cedis. The CDD believes that it is too high and it will encourage corruption if it is not reviewed downwards to a less figure. The progress on the conduct of public officers bill has been very slow, according to the CDD. There's also in terms of job creation and all of that. And the foreign affairs part, most importantly, talks about the fact that we are appointing politically related persons to occupy, to represent Ghana in other countries instead of, career diplomacy. So these are the major things, including security threats to the country as far as this particular report.
James, thank you very much for bringing us those thematic areas. We can now speak to CDD Ghana's Jacob Ahonu, who is joining us on Zoom with more. Jacob, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. My colleague James was at your program yesterday and has been providing some details, but I want to find out from you what materials were considered in arriving at this detailed report that you put out.
Thank you. I would like to say good afternoon to your viewers and possibly listeners. For us as CDD, we took into consideration a lot of the details that were picked up were coming from both, not just both, but included the NDC manifesto, the 120-day social contract, the sonars that were delivered by the president. The budget statement was also scrutinized. We also had other platforms that the president had spoken or made promises were all captured. I mean, we brought all this together in order to be able to get a comprehensive document. And we didn't end there. We had the process go through institutional review as well. So we looked at the constitutional body in terms of the constitution, the legislations that we had, and then the accountability institutions plus other agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies that churn out information. We try to scrutinize as much as possible what we can get to be able to come to this conclusion. Again, we added...
Jacob, let's talk about the corruption bit. I'm interested in the corruption bit. How would you score the John Mahama administration's fight against corruption 1 year into this administration?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, that was not our focus in terms of scoring using numbers, or better to say, better or worse. Rather, our focus was to document the initiatives that were undertaken by the government, and then looking at the gaps or the path through which this initiative will lead us, as much as looking at the gaps in terms of what they missed to talk about or missed to take actions on. And we decided to put that out there. It is not an assessment where we want to conclusively talk about scoring the government with a figure or a percentage or any other, but rather put out the initiative, the actions, the policies that the government had decided to initiate or start, and look at how and where it will lead us, as well as looking at the gaps in terms of what they left out or did not do right. So basically, these were the focus. So unfortunately, I will not be able to give you a scoring or looking at putting the president in a category, no.
So what were the major successes chalked by President John Mahama during his first term in office when it comes to corruption? Did you find any?
Yes. So definitely, if I noticed your colleague had put out some of the information we had picked up. So one, we believe that the launch of the code of conduct for appointees was one of the key initiatives that the government had taken that we believe would inure to the betterment of anti-corruption in the country. But again, when we speak on that, we go to the other side, which is the gap. We already have Conduct of Public Officers Bill in the offing, which unfortunately is basically looking like the right to information, but which took so many years before it got passed. So the idea here is that though this is a good initiative, the battle really is with getting a very comprehensive Conduct of Public Officers Bill into law, which will regulate and make it codified in terms of law. This was an initiative. Any other president could put this aside and do something else. So as much as it's a good initiative, there is something better we could have done in terms of that. Another aspect was the Operation Recover All Loot. The idea from the promises that were given was that this was an initiative that is going to bring in terms of revenue or monies that were stolen from the past government. But if we leave it as it is, and currently that is how it is looking at, the challenge here is that then it means it was mainly focused on the previous government. What happens when issues of corruption or allegations come up in this very present government? What will Oral do? Has Oral's work ended by the submission of their report to the AG or to the president? Those are the gaps we had, but the initiative in its own was a good initiative. We also talked about the withdrawal of the Private Members Bill, which had intended to more like scrap the Office of the Special Prosecution. This we believe was a good action taken by the president. But again, on the positive side, that is it. But on the negative side, the fact that you could have members of the ruling government within Parliament taking this action without seeking the executive's approval, even though we want to say Parliament is independent of the executive, but because they are from the same party, this was sending a bad signal to the anti-corruption fight. Because if with a super majority, if they had gone ahead, the likelihood of the OSB being scrapped was going to be something that was going to be easy, if you put it that way. But again, the initiative of halting it was positive, and we commend that. But we feel that going forward, a very lasting solution, which was professed by the CRC, that is to combine all the anti-corruption institutions into one, have the commission, Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission as one that holds constitutional power through the amendment referendum that may come up and the amendment of the constitution to give them the legitimacy, the independence that we call for.
Jacob,
again,
Jacob, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Jacob Ahonu is with CDD Ghana. Away from that, Nawoni, a farming community in the Kumbungu district of the northern region, is grappling with devastating floods that have submerged more than 300 acres of farmland cultivated by smallholder farmers. The disaster has left many families scrambling to salvage remnants of their crops, with livelihoods hanging in the balance. Farmers say the situation is not new. For the past 5 years, recurring floods have repeatedly destroyed their harvest, deepening poverty and food insecurity in the area. The following report has more.
Rains have been pouring down for weeks, and the usual quiet farmlands of the Nawoni community look murky with the waters rising high.
We have been able to salvage a few grains, even though the large portion is not ready yet for harvest, but we are compelled to leave the rest.
Mba Abdullahi Zachariah's farm has been submerged. He was not around when the floods occurred, and this morning he's receiving a briefing from his wife on the disaster. Armed with this information, he sets out to visit his farm.
We expected that we would get something this year, and all of a sudden, the floodwaters came and submerged the farm. This year, the cost of a tractor for an acre was 200 Ghana cedis, and my farm was 7 acres. You can imagine the loss.
Climate change expert Mahama Wayo from the Tamale Technical University Faculty of Agriculture and Natural Resource explained the reason behind these floods.
Floods are caused by different factors. The first factor has to do with climate factors. To the extent that we have prolonged rains can cause flood. We have anthropogenic factors. Anthropogenic factors that cause flood include things like people building along waterways.
Mbazakaria and many other farmers in this community have no knowledge.
Apologies for our inability to bring you the full report of that story. Now, climate change remains a major global concern, with experts warning that rapid urbanization and development pressures are intensifying its impact. At a recent climate policy dialogue, stakeholders raised concerns about the difficult balance between economic growth and environmental protection in Ghana. Here's Maxwell Aklobeto's report.